What the heck is this tool? I don't know. I bought a piece of cardboard. Yeah, that works. Harley Davidson gives you this strange looking wrench for who knows what on a Pan America. I've heard it said that the slots and the notch in the top are to be used for adjusting the chain. Nowhere in the owner's manual or any other manual do they describe how to do it. However, what they do describe is the fact that you need to adjust it between 50 and 60 millimeters. That's what we're going to do today. I'll show you how. To start, let's go ahead and see what the current chain slack is. Now on Pan America, there's a hole right here in the middle of the swing arm. It's approximately halfway between the front sprocket and the rear sprocket. In the manual, it says to check halfway between. So that's where we're going to do it. Since I have a center stand, it's up on the center stand. On a side stand, the dimensions are different. So pay attention to that. In my case, it's 50 to 60 millimeters from full slack to full up. So in this case, I'm going to put a scale perpendicular right up against the swing arm, and I'm going to lower this piece of cardboard to about where the top of the chain is. So if we're going to adjust it to 50 to 60, we want to go from the top of the chain here up to either 50 or 60, and that would be our final position. In this case, 50 is no problem, 60 is no problem. Yeah, we're well above that. So we're going to go ahead and break loose the axle nut, adjust the adjusters back, and while we're at it, we're going to make sure that the chain is aligned. All right, the first step of chain adjustment is to loosen the axle nut. I'm not going to completely remove it, and if you look, retaining the axle nut is this E-clip. It spins around freely, but the E-clip is smaller than the flats on the axle. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up the axle nut enough so that we can move the wheel and tire forward and back. In this case, the axle nut is held on with a 36 millimeter nut. So on this side, it's 36 millimeter, and it's 32 millimeter on the other side. I don't know how much effort I'm going to need, but I have a breaker bar, and I'll hold that stationary. That's 32 millimeters. So the key is to loosen it like this. And again, we're just loosening it enough so that the wheel will move freely on the adjusters. As you can see there, with the amount that we've loosened it, we're good. So the first step is to find the proper location and the proper spacing side to side, and then move the adjusters in equal distance. So I've taken the camera off of the tripod to show something up close. When Harley Davidson says to measure the axle position so that you can get both sides equal distance to allow for the wheel to be straight, what they're talking about is measuring, I'll use this to point, between the front of the adjuster collar and this machine surface. So what I've done is I've went ahead and I've gotten a set of bore gauges, there's the appropriate size, that will expand to fit the distance. What that'll allow me to do is expand it to check the two sides, adjust the nut in the back, and then that way I can be sure that the right side and the left side have the same distance between this machine surface and the front of the adjustment collar. Here we are at the left-hand side adjuster. Again, I've got the bore gauge. I'm going to place it in here on the flat spot and the closest spot on the adjuster itself. Loosen it, tighten it again. Then I'm going to check. I think it go a little tighter. There, now there's just slight drag when you get to the tight spot. All right, on the right-hand side, remember on the left, we had a slight drag. Now we're going to see if we have a drag. Again, we push the adjuster as far forward as it goes, And there's space. There's a fair amount of space. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the axle is forward as far as it can go, the adjuster's as far as it can go, and we're going to repeat what we did on the left over here on the right. So it looks like the right-hand side has more space, meaning that it has been pulled back further with the adjuster nut. So let's figure out how far. Again, put it in the middle, release it. You go up and down, see if we have a bit of drag. It's a little bit too tight. There we go. Let's try that. Takes a little bit of finesse. Anyone who's used feeler gauges knows how this goes. There we go. So there's a little bit of drag, not much. And we go back and forth. Let's go back to the left-hand side and adjust. Here we are back on the left-hand side. Have our adjusted bore gauge from the right. We're going to check clearance. So we're going to use a 13 millimeter wrench. We're not going to go very far. I'm just going to do, in essence, fraction of a turn. That's it. Check it again. We don't want to go too far because then we're going to be pushing this all over the place. That is the same as the other side. So if you noticed, I only went a fraction of a turn. The reason why I'm using a box end wrench is that when we start adjusting these side by side, we can go the same amount of turn both sides to get the slack in our chain where we want it. All right, here we are back. Going to check the adjustment of our chain. We're going to start right here in the middle with our piece of cardboard with 50 millimeters and 60 millimeters marked on it. So again, we're going to adjust it up to where it just touches the top of the chain. And see how close we are to 50 and 60, quite a ways over. Remember, we want to be from a little bit of a gap above that line to here. So we're going to move the adjusters 1/2 turn at a time. We're not going to go very far. 1/2 turn tighter to tighten up the chain. All right, here we are in the back. Straight down, we're going to tighten it 1/2 turn. Let's do the same on the right-hand side, because remember, we want these to move together. Let's check it again. Look at that. 1/2 turn brought us to 60. I'm going to go a little bit more. I want to get it to 50. I'm going to tighten it 1/2 turn again. On the left. 1/2 turn on the right. Check it again. That's too tight. So we had tightened it 1/2 turn, and it went more than we needed. So we are going to loosen it 1/4 of a turn. Right here in the same place we've been checking. Here we are just at 50. So what we're going to do before we tighten everything up, I'm going to spin the wheel a couple of times and we'll check it again. So that to me, it's like we're just under the line to just under the line. Just to be safe, we'll spin it some more. Try it again. It's good to check it in a few different places. You don't know if the chain has stretched equally or evenly. Move this down just a skosh. So we're going from just under the line to just under the line. That to me looks like it's between 50 and 60. Now that we have adjusted it, checked it in a couple of places, it's time to tighten the axle nut. Here we are back over on the right-hand side of the bike. We're going to go ahead and tighten up our axle nut. We had loosened it. Yeah, see, it's only finger tight. We're going to tighten it to the torque spec from Harley Davidson. In this case, it is 95 to 105 foot-pounds. So to me, that sounds like 100 foot-pounds. So I've got my favorite torque wrench. I'm going to adjust it up to 100 foot-pounds. There we are, 100 foot-pounds. 100 lined up with 0. We're going to use the same 36 millimeter socket to tighten it. We're going to hold it on the other side with the breaker bar just to make sure that it doesn't move. Tighten it till it clicks. There we are, 100 foot-pounds. Tighten the axle nut. The last step of this process is to check it one more time to make sure the slack is correct, in case something moved or something's out of adjustment after we torque the axle. We've tightened the axle nut, made sure the adjusters are correct. Let's spin the wheel a little bit, make sure that we're okay. Put our scale back up behind it, our piece of cardboard. Going from a little bit of tension up to 50. I don't know. Looks a little too tight. Let's go ahead and pull this down just a skosh. There. I think that's okay. It's at the low end of the spec, which is fine. As the chain wears and stretches, it'll go up to 60, and then I'll adjust it back down to 50. So it was a little bit tedious, yes, but adjusting a chain is important for chain health. I still don't know what this is for, but scale and a piece of cardboard is all you need to go from the lower position to the upper position to make sure your chain is set correctly. One thing that helps for side to side or the positioning of the wheel is a simple bore gauge. That way you can check between the front of the adjuster collar and the flat spot that's machined into the swing arm. And last of all, make small adjustments. If you make big adjustments, you'll be chasing it all day long. That's it for the video today. Please like and subscribe. Hit the bell and you'll be notified of more content. Thank you for watching. Go far with Brent.